On 9/13/2018, I was in the probate court room in Oakland County, and being in that county for several years, I was discussing my father's estate over there in that public venue. At the time, I had an incident shortly after leaving the venue that day where I came out of the courtroom, and I walked down the hallway past a large officer in a brown suit. At that time I knew he was an officer, I didn't know what officer it was. However, I walked past him because there was no situation really going on, but I was looking for my wife, Jody White. She had exited the probate venue a few minutes before myself, and we can go into that detail later possibly. But I was looking for Jody that day, and so I went down by the probate annex department to look for her. I couldn't see her and I couldn't hear her, and I was concerned for her that day. So I came back towards where I had seen the police officer, and when I came back towards the officer, I had seen one odd thing, and that was that he had his foot in the ladies' restroom door, just propping the ladies' door open, and he was standing outside of the restroom but looking into the restroom. I asked him a question as to whether my wife was in the bathroom, and he looked at me in a stare, and then I did hear my wife's voice come out of the bathroom. It was not loud of any sort. She just said, "Yes, Jeff, I'm in here and I'll be out in a minute." Not knowing that there was another officer in there by the name of Officer Moore. I do know that today, that Officer Moore was in the restroom, and that is why Officer Thyme at that time had his foot in the door to the ladies' bathroom. So as he was standing there, I asked if I could go into the restroom to talk to my wife, and he had indicated that there was another officer in there, a female officer. And so I waited out there for a minute, and he had a few words. He asked me a couple questions. He asked me if I was with her today, whether I drove separately from her, and I said, by the way, we did. We had separate things to do today, and so I did indicate to him that we did drive separately, and he said that I should possibly move on, be on my way, and I thought that was very odd. And I said, I will not move on, that's my wife in there. I reiterated that with him, and this guy's 6'5", probably 250 pounds, very large man, and he's got his foot in the woman's door. I thought it was very odd, so I said I would wait for my wife, and very shortly after that she came out and sat down on a chair. And so she sat down on a chair. She began to have a little bit of conversation with a couple of the officers there. There was Officer Moore, Officer Thyme, and then another officer there that I did not know his name. And I don't really know his name to this day, but I believe it was Officer Kazor. But Jody had indicated that she wanted to write an incident report, and that Officer Moore had stated that she would help her write an incident report regarding what took place in the probate venue with Judge O'Brien. And at that time, Judge O'Brien had showed up in the hallway, unrobed, and she had said, "Hey, that's great, why don't you help me make that incident report? He's here right now." Well, then the Officer Kazor, the other one that I don't really know at all, he had made an indication to Jody there was one thing that she needed to do today, and that was to leave the facility. Jody made a couple comments. She was not loud about it or anything like that. She says, "Hey, I'm here to do something else." I kind of realized with the three officers there that I should call my wife to my attention, so I gestured her over with my hand, and she came up to me, and we were speaking face to face. And if the cameras were available today in the from the venue, that would show the whole thing where we're all standing around by the bathrooms. I mean, they are available, but for some reason we don't have that film. And I spoke to Jody. I said, it would be best, Jody, if we left today, because I just think that, there's a little bit of animosity here or whatever, and we need to just move on. So she indicated to me that she was there to do a job for a former congressman by the name of Kerry Bentivolio. And I said, well, no, today we need to just move on, Jody. She agreed with me. She went back to her seat. She grabbed her stuff. She looked at the officer, and she indicated to him that she was leaving. And so she started to move fast, as she does. She moves fast through life. She's a very passionate person. The officers are following right behind her. I'm following right behind the officers. And so we're 3/4 of the way down the hall. We're almost to the exit. And the one officer, Thyme, decides to, he's a very young officer, he decides to make a very zealous decision, a very conscious decision to run up on my wife onto her right side, it would be, with his left side. And when he hits her from behind, now he's hitting her from behind, she doesn't even know that this is taking place. And he spins her to the ground. By that time, I'm watching the other officer, and I believe that's Kazor. He is running up, but he's actually kind of skipping up there like, wow, we're really going to do this? We're really going to arrest this lady? And so I'm watching him as his feet are waffling up to the situation. Now, if anybody is loud at all in the hallway, it's not Jody, it's myself, because I run up there at the same time the other officer, does arrive. And I say, hey, we're walking out. What's the problem here? And my wife is being lifted up by these police officers, these two police officers, and she asked me to take her bag. So I grab her bag. I see these deputies, and they're lifting my wife up from the ground, and she's quite stunned at this point because she's been knocked to the ground and from behind. And she asked me to take her bag, and so I said, all right, Jody, and I grab her bag. It was a red bag that day, and so she then looks at the one officer, Thyme, and I can see that he's pressing her wrist down like this, and she says, you don't have to do that, sir. You're hurting me. And as they're exiting her towards the doors, I think, well, I've got our bags, we're going towards the doors, maybe we're still going to exit the facility here. It's kind of rude what just took place, but maybe we're going to exit the doors. But they go right past the check-in station and right into this other little room where they contain her at. And I'm probably standing there at the checkout station for about 20 minutes. I'm asking the deputies themselves, what will you guys be doing? Are you charging my wife with something? And at first they don't answer me at all. And then one officer comes out of that room, and I believe it's Captain Molinar, but he's got short hair, very, very similar to mine, kind of spiked up. And I said, are you charging my wife with something? And he says, we will make something stick. And I thought that was very odd. And he walks back into that room, and then he comes out with a piece of paper. And he says to me, would you like to make a statement? And I said, with all these cameras in this building, I think that I'll leave it up to the cameras to show what happened. And so that's where I had pretty much left it that day, but he went back into the room. I tried to get closer to the room to see if they were truly going to arrest my wife. And I was told by a couple of deputies that I needed to leave the area, walk out towards the exit doors. That's what I did until she was escorted out by a few deputies to the car. Just that I'm very unhappy with the results of this whole ordeal for 4 years. I just want to let you know that, and I am speaking with others at the county commissioner level.
Oh, you know what?
And the state level.
Not to worry. See,
okay, thank you.
We are fully aware here at the Oakland County Probate Court of your complaints and your wife's complaints and so many other people's complaints and going over the commission, and that's okay. Okay?
All right.
Whatever. The more the merrier over there.
I just wanted to let you know my unhappiness with the court.
I already know, Mr. White.
Okay.
I know.
Thank you.
Absolutely
Thank you.
know.
You don't have to go on, sir.
I will have it written on the file. Jeff White and Jody White, who's not a party to this case.
You don't have to bring in my wife, okay? You don't have to bring her into this.
I don't have to bring her in.
No.
I never asked her to come in, but she's pushed herself in on these things on her own. I didn't ask for it.
She only was here in regards to my children's educational funds.
Is that right?
Over 2 years to get.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Then why is she here today?
She must have drove by herself.
And when she's over there at the Commissioner's Auditorium and sending out her emails, they aren't just about her children. Okay?
Because she sees the, you know, excuse the expression, but the nonsense of these two gentlemen, Mr. Ehrlich and Mr.
These two,
Frazier.
he's one gentleman. Isn't
Well, but I know Mr. Frazier never shows. He's not here today. He never shows up. He's
Never
not very
shows up.
often. Not very often. He's
Okay, so we've gone from never to not very often.
yeah. He's a very truthful,
Truthful.
dishonest trustee in my
You know what?
opinion.
Your wife better stop her gesticulating and all her antics back there, or I will have her arrested and thrown in jail for contempt of court. Okay? And if she didn't hear it, you deliver the message. You warn her, because you're going to be visiting her in jail if she doesn't knock it off in my courtroom. I absolutely will hold her in contempt in a heartbeat.
I'm done being threatened by you. I'm done being threatened.
Would you like to continue, sir?
I would like to hold her in contempt right now for that little display and order that she appear back here tomorrow. No, I'll give her till next Wednesday to appear back here. I'm thinking about it.
Do you
If
want?
she ever comes in here again and acts up in any way, I will hold her in contempt, period. No second chance, no nothing. And she will be put in handcuffs and thrown in jail. And you can get a copy of this transcript and you can publish it to the world. for
I'm
all I
sure she
care.
will. I'm sure she will.
We have previously had numerous motions on the college savings funds. I told the court I would give you an update as to those. I was able to secure payment for both Mitchell and Emma of college
Thank you.
savings funds.
My guess is Jeff White and Jody White will never thank you for doing that, so I'll do it
Thank you.
on behalf of the court anyways for helping us out.
Excuse me, Your Honor. You brought up my name. I did thank him prior to this, okay? Your Honor, I did thank Mr. Rooney.
Did I see it in print anywhere?
No, but I did
Did I
thank
see
him. But you
anybody
just
tell?
assumed.
Did I see anybody tell
You
the
brought my name up,
commissioners
sir, and said that I wouldn't
Mr.
thank
Rooney, that Mr. Rooney, at my request, did something he didn't have to do based on a request from me, which I didn't have to do because that
And I want to
issue
thank,
has
I
nothing
wanna
to
thank
do with
you
this
too, Your
court.
Honor.
Do not talk over me. But has one word been said over there in a positive fashion toward Mr. Rooney or myself as a result of that? You know what? And I remember reading about Jody White actually not only chastising me for my handling of it, and not only Mr. Ehrlich, but Mr. Rooney as well. And he was doing a favor for you people. Yet, but you couldn't recognize it, and you went over there to the commissioners and went after myself mostly, Mr. Ehrlich, even more I should say, and Mr. Rooney over that issue. That amazed me because Mr. Rooney and Mr. Ehrlich were total volunteers in that.
well, you're
Complete
misspeaking
No,
about
I'm
me
not.
speaking about you
No, I'm
and
not.
Mr. Rooney, but I'm only speaking about Mr. Ehrlich and Mr. Frazier.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Yes, I am.
Speaking. I watched it.
Okay,
I
well,
watched
watch it. I'm speaking about Mr. Ehrlich and Mr. Frazier, the public administrator that's supposed to be a part of the AG. And he's
You're
done
right.
a horrible job.